This is the Eye for an Eye channel. Welcome to today's show. You will not even believe this. I guess you will at this point. But the mainstream media is actually covering some of the topics we're all talking about. Surprise, surprise. And why would they be doing that? To tell everybody, to inform them about the things we're telling them that are happening? Oh, no. Of course, to deflect. Because whenever, of course, the media comes out and has to deflect off of a topic like this, you know that they're guilty, right? I mean, there should be a couple things that are givens in this world. Anytime you see a YouTube video and it has a Wikipedia box underneath it giving an explanation about whatever the topic is, just believe the opposite. And the same can be said for the mainstream media. So the Associated Press has an article, and this has been airing, things have been airing on local news stations about conspiracy theories about FEMA's October 4th emergency alert, and it's spreading online. So they're going to fact check. And of course, just like I said, when they fact check or they put a Wikipedia box underneath it, just make sure you believe the opposite. The claim is that an emergency broadcast, wait till you hear, I can't even believe that they're even mentioning this. I guess I can, but it seems more surreal to me every day that they're even bringing attention to it. Because if they weren't guilty, they would just completely ignore this. Why would you even bring attention to it unless, of course, you need to deflect because they need this story with keywords like graphene oxide to drown out any other story that's out there. And of course, I'm just relaying the story here. I don't even know what graphene oxide is. I don't know anything about what they're even discussing. I just thought that this would be a great idea to do a video on it. So the claim is that emergency broadcast system test on October 4th will send a signal to cell phones nationwide in order to activate nanoparticles such as graphene oxide that have been introduced into people's bodies. Here's the AP's assessment. This is false. Next month's test, even though it is now a week from today, just be forewarned, next month's test of the nationwide emergency alert system uses the same familiar audio tone that's been used since the 1960s to broadcast warnings across the country. That is not true. They're using it through cell phones. Last I checked, there weren't cell phones in the 1960s, so they weren't able to send out frequency pulses through the phone. I mean, give me a break. A spokesperson for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is overseeing the test, also said there are no known adverse health effects from the signal. The claims revive long debunked conspiracy theories about the contents of a certain something, some type of magic potion that they wanted to put inside your body. Okay? Can't say those words, of course. So, obviously, whenever they're telling you that something's been long debunked, it hasn't been debunked. They just tell you it's been debunked, and then everybody out there just regurgitates it and repeats it. Nothing's been debunked. In fact, if anything, more things have been proven to be factual that we're all saying versus what the AP and the mainstream media is trying to shove into your brain, which obviously is sticking to a lot of zombies' minds because they don't know how to process thoughts or to do any observation of any of these things. They would read this and they'd be like, yeah, they've been doing that since the 1960s. Oh, have they? People had cell phones in the 1960s. Did we have 5G towers in the 1960s? Of course we did not. Now, one of the things they're going to use, I'm sure, is that after the 4th, they're going to, well, there's two things. First, let's just look at this little sentence here, right? They say there are no known adverse health effects from the signal. They say the same thing over and over again about 5G, about cell phones and radiation to your brain. They've been doing it for about 20 years now, where they just go, oh, there's no known adverse effects, even though scientists, or real doctors, I should say, have gone out there and pled with Congress about the dangers of the radiation from the 5G. And of course, they know exactly what the dangers are and they know exactly what they're doing. So they just go, oh, we don't know. Well, maybe before you run something like this out, you should actually do proper testing. Oh, wait, they did. They know exactly what it's going to do to humans and they don't care. In fact, this is the whole point of everything going on, is to connect you. It's called the Internet of Bodies. So that's one thing. The other thing is that people are going to hear the 1960 stuff and they're immediately just going to be like, oh yeah, they've been doing emergency alerts forever, so what's the big deal, right? And then on top of that, they try to make it sound all insane by saying nanoparticles and this graphene oxide thing, which I've never heard of. They try to just throw that out there so that people, without explaining what it really is. So people hear that stuff and they're like, oh yeah, it's too much for me to comprehend. Let me go look at Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Let me go look at that. No, yay, they're dating? That is so exciting. What's graphene oxide? I don't know. Maybe it's the thing that's in me that's making my brain care about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. What's their nickname going to be? Is it going to be Trailer? Oh, your head just exploded. And guess what? It wasn't from all the unimportant, nonsensical issues that are developing in your mind because the mainstream media is putting in there. It's because you probably have graphene oxide in you. And the 5G just went off, right? Another thing, too, is that when this stuff goes down, they're not, a lot of people expect people to be foaming at the mouth at the moment. They're never going to cover it in the news, so you wouldn't know anyway. And number two, this is more of a activation thing. So it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be activated the same way. So they're going to come out and they're going to deflect the next day and just be like, oh, yeah, people said something was going on. They're not even going to know what's going on inside of their body, just like they don't right now. Just like they'll never know, and even when they do find out, which they have found out because people like us have told them, they're just going to believe it's something else because they're too narcissistic to ever accept that they would do this to themselves or that the government, who they love, or their celebrities would. So, again, we know what's going on with the spiritual war. So here, let's continue with the AP article. The facts: social media users are raising dire warnings. I'm just laughing because, what social media users? Obviously, I'm one of the people talking about it. They're just watching all of us. They're the ones flagging all of our content. And then they put these articles out. They're like, social media users are raising dire warnings about upcoming tests of the National Emergency Warning System. Many are imploring their followers to shut off their phones on the day of the test because they believe it's part of a broader conspiracy to exert control over the population. So when they put something like that, when they word it like that, it makes people out there roll their eyes because they're pretty much, these are all things that have been ingrained in people, right? Like from cartoons to movies about, to people like Dr. Evil, to exert control over the population. But the fact of the matter is this is more deeper than control over the population. This is about extermination. This is about a mass extinction, which I've covered over and over again. So the fact that they're saying many are employing their followers to shut off their phones, which I'm obviously one of those people. I said, why wouldn't you shut it off? Why would you even take a chance, right? I think, people with cell phones for the most part, including myself, we should be using the Faraday bags every day and keeping the phone in the Faraday bag. And then obviously just using the phone as needed if it's an emergency or something like that. People should still be sticking with landlines, but they're making that even harder to have at this point. They don't want people to have landlines. That's why they want a lot of the stuff through text messaging because you can't do that with landlines, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, anybody who has a landline, if they talk to people, then they're like, you have a landline? They get made fun of and bullied about it, even though they shouldn't care. People do because they're embarrassed by it. They're like, you have a cell phone that flips? That's embarrassing. Is it? Is it embarrassing? I think you're embarrassing. I think your whole thought process on life's embarrassing, and the fact that you're wearing a shirt that says Swifty is utterly shameful and an abomination to humankind. So, again, why would this AP article be talking about, people like me imploring people to shut off their phones? What's the worst thing that happens if people shut off their phones? Okay? Since they're saying that they don't know what could or couldn't happen, and then they're saying, those types of things are unknown. They don't know. Maybe something could happen. We're going to make sure that our hands are clean of this, because we don't want to be held accountable. But why wouldn't you just say, hey, if you think something could happen, maybe you should shut your phone off or put it in a Faraday bag, because obviously shutting it off might not be enough. So one popular video shows a woman claiming the test will somehow switch on technology that has been introduced into people's bodies. The emergency, bro. I'm laughing because of the way they word it. This is all true, but the way they word it, think about this from a common zombie standpoint, right? One popular video shows a woman claiming the test is going to somehow switch on tech inside of people's bodies. People just be like, what is she? But if you actually research this and understand how this works and what they're capable of, and if your brain starts realizing, we can do a lot with technology, it is pretty crazy what we could do. People don't even think back to what the world looked like 20 years ago with technology versus now. Of course they could do this stuff. They tell you it all the time in movies about control inside of people's bodies, but people just don't want to believe it's possible because they're just too prideful. They don't want to think that their heroes, the people in politics and the celebrities would do this to them. So the emergency broadcasting system under FEMA is going to be activated, the woman explained, speaking directly into the camera. It's not a test. It's going to be sending these high-frequency signals into cell phones, radios, TVs, the intention of activating nanoparticles, including graphene oxide. Of course, they don't say the woman's name because they don't want, if somebody out there read this article, they'd be like, well, let me see what this woman saw. Someone with common sense. I know the majority of people don't, but somebody with common sense would be like, let me just check this person's channel out, which is one of the reasons they never ever in the past, decade have ever mentioned my channel in any of these articles. Because if somebody came over, if they thought that this stuff was all crazy and came over and listened to some of my videos, I get it that sometimes people will listen, they'll be like, okay, this guy's out of his mind, because sometimes I'm yelling and I'm ranting because stuff is just insane. But they would be able to piece things together and be like, oh, okay, wait a minute. No, this does make sense. This could possibly happen. So they just say some crazy woman, whoever, I don't know who they're referencing, but they're just saying some woman who sounds like a lunatic is saying this stuff. We won't tell you who it is in case you go over there and actually hear her explain it, sound calm and sound understanding and make sense of it, because then you actually would wake up and shut your phone off, put it in a Faraday bag and realize what's going on and probably not go get boosted. So they say in another widely shared video, a man issues a similar warning, adding that graphene oxide and other nanoparticles have been inserted into billions of human beings around the world through obvious mediums. Maybe they're referencing me. I mean, through obvious mediums. I do speak like that very, right? I mean, if they say magic potion, then I guess that I would assume they're talking about me. But everyone will be affected, regardless of status, he adds in the video, which was widely shared on X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, along with the hashtag. Well, I can't say what the hashtag was, because of course that'll trigger the algorithm. But if you're out there and you're not suspicious yet, they won't let you talk about this stuff, okay? Why do you think they won't let you talk about it? That should be enough of a reason. If we're all nuts, then let us talk like crazy people and let people just dismiss this. Oh, because what? We're affecting people going and getting it? That's what they're telling people? Oh, yeah, of course. Whatever they could spew out of their mouths to make people actually accept the censorship, when the fact of the matter is they go out of their way to deflect off of these things because it's true. They wouldn't be wasting their time. If somebody made ridiculous allegations against you, would you even waste your time addressing it? I get ridiculous allegations made against me. Why would I even address it? It's so ridiculous. Why would I give it legs or attention, right? They bring attention to it to deflect off of it, so that these articles drown out the actual story. So if somebody looks up October 4th and conspiracy, this will be what shows up. So it's immediately programming them to not accept anything else that they hear about it. So they say, while FEMA is conducting a routine test of its emergency warning system next month, there's no truth to the claim that it will emit a wireless signal that will somehow activate graph oxide or nanoparticles in the body. Stanley Perlman, professor of microbiology and immunology at the University of Iowa in Iowa City, said the claims appear to be referring to old myths about the contents of the you-know-whats. These baseless conspiracies claim without evidence that the vaccines contain various materials such as graphene oxide and other nanoparticles, which have all been proven true, by the way. I love it. They're like, there's no evidence without evidence. How many people out there put evidence under microscopes, actually things that are listed on the websites of these companies who produce these things that show that it's in there? Okay, then they scrub this or they try to deflect off of it and say, well, we don't know if it's really in there. It's all over the place. I mean, anybody with just a computer could research this stuff and see that it's mentioned in there. And they just go without evidence. And that's enough for people out there to go, oh, there's no evidence. And then they just repeat it. They just go, oh, there's no evidence. There's plenty of evidence. It's been proven already. Hello, it's been proven. So then somebody shows you it under a microscope and then you'll still go, oh, that's not enough evidence. That's not real. So it's more about the shield in your mind, the wall in your mind that you put up to not accepting this stuff because you've put it in you. Or this wall you put up because you're a narcissist and you won't accept truth. But there is evidence. I love how they just say that. And they know that the zombie out there is just going to repeat it and go, there's no evidence to prove it, because that's what we hear these idiots do day in and day out. There's no evidence. There's tons of it. My old channels, all of them I've ever had, even though I'm a new YouTuber, have been loaded with evidence on everything going on. They're like, there's no evidence that they're in a secret society. There isn't? Oh, okay, all the secret societies teach that it's a secret that they're not allowed to tell, but they communicate through signs and symbols. Oh, okay, and here they are doing it thousands of times over and over. That's no evidence. Oh, it's not evidence. Okay, so you're brain dead. Is that that's the only evidence we have? Is that somebody gave you a lobotomy or you gave one to yourself? Is that it? Is the evidence that you have, feces for brains? Oh, yes, there's evidence to support that. It's called the fact that you don't actually think that your brain's on autopilot. So, but the article says graphene oxide, a material made by oxidizing graphite, isn't an ingredient in the potion, notes Matthew Lawrence, a pediatric infectious disease specialist with the Center of Development and Global Health at the University of Maryland. The oxide is not in the, I can't say a lot of these words. This should be something I have on the website, but I'm doing it here for everybody just to see how ridiculous this is. And I'll take the chance of a strike. By the way, please sub to my backup channels below if you haven't yet, because a strike I won't be able to upload for a week here, and I'll be 2 away from deletion, which is, of course, coming at some point. But they say the oxide is not in the potions manufactured by those companies who made them. I'm trying to speak around the issue here. Graph Ox was used to study the magic potion structure only and is not in the formulation. So that's another one of the ways they deflect. They say the oxide was used to study it, the structure Oh, okay, but it's not it, even though it's listed on the ingredient list. Regardless, the notion that oxide can be activated in this way is nonsense, wrote Julia Greer, a material science professor at the California Institute of Tech in Pasadena, who has used graphene oxide in her research in an email Monday. You can't activate oxide. What does that even mean? Oh, no. Go to the website. I got trillions of videos probably. Not trillions, but I definitely have double-digit videos on oxide being activated in the body. Even those, like, you know those trendy YouTube videos that, like, just pop up and you're like, what is this? And they make it trend. A lot of those types of channels where, like, they talk monotone. They're like, hey, did you know this? Because that, right? And everyone's like, cool, neat. There's tons of videos about oxide with that, talking about how it could activate in you. And then they're like, how could you get it in you? And it's like, I don't know. I wonder how they could get it in you. I mean, pretty obvious, right? Jeez. Who is Julia Greer? I mean, you want to talk about, yeah, it's a scientist, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, where did she get her degree at? Where is she a scientist from? Scientology? I mean, these people couldn't be bigger liars and more clueless. But like I've said a million times, attach doctor or scientist to these people, and you just have to automatically believe them, right? It just gives them some type of social status in people's brains. So it goes on to say the actual nanoparticles that are in the potions, meanwhile, are lipids or fats that are generally used as a coating material. Oh, okay. So now they admit to the nanoparticles being in there, but they're not the nanoparticles you think. They're the nanoparticles they tell you, which are lipids or fats that are generally used as a coating material. They're sometimes described as programmable because they can be modified and adjusted, depending on the need, experts have said. It does not mean they can be programmed to interact with wireless networks. I can't believe they're even saying this, but I guess I can at this point because it's too much for people's brains to fathom. So they hear this. It makes anyone out there who's like nervous about this stuff, who has heard some stuff and like, maybe it is, it just reassures them that it's not when in reality it is what's going on. So they're just like, oh, good. The AP has an article about it. See, these people are crazy conspiracy because the AP told me that I'm not going to be programmed to interact with the wireless networks, even though all the world leaders who meet with all the people like in Davos, the World Economic Forum, tell you that you're going to be connected to the internet. In fact, they even talk about, at the World Economic Forum, how 6G is going to be in your body, right? And they even mention here that nanoparticles are in them, but they're not the ones that we're saying. They're fats, ladies and gentlemen. So it's just fats now. What is it? I mean, saturated fat, is that what it is? Oh, they're like, well, it's just a coating material, okay? So yeah, there's nano on the coating material, but what does that just dissolve into thin air? Because last I checked, it doesn't, right? With nanoparticles. I mean, it's utterly unbelievable. They say there's also nothing nefarious about the routine tests that FEMA and the Federal Communications Commission are conducting next month. Such tests have been happening with regularity for years now, without any reports of adverse health effects from the system signals, said Jeremy Edwards, FEMA spokesperson. The sole purpose of the test is to ensure that the systems continue to be an effective means of warning the public about emergencies, particularly those on the national level. Yeah, because, they always use those national emergency things, like in Maui, right? They didn't send out an alarm or an alert to anybody. They let the kids out of school early, right? And didn't set off the alarm, and those kids are all missing and unaccounted for. And, of course, the media never mentions that. So let me get this straight. The sole purpose of the test is to ensure that the systems work so that they can warn the public about emergencies. But when emergencies happen, not only do the alerts not go off, all the people who are responsible for sending off the alerts and keeping everything in order or happen to be meeting at the same time talking about this event actually happening while it's actually live, like in Maui, like at Event 201, like on the 11th of September, like in Boston, like a lot of these events that happen at schools. Very convenient. Right? I mean, if you're not seeing it yet, you're utterly clueless. The two nationwide systems, the Emergency Alert System, or EAS, and Wireless Emergency Alerts, or WEA, are critical tools that save lives and allow people to protect property when natural disasters, acts of terror, and other threats to public safety strike. Yeah, really help with the natural disaster in Maui. Next month's test is slated to be on October 4th at 2:20 p.m. Eastern, but could be postponed to the 11th. If there's severe weather or other significant events, according to FEMA. Of course, you'll postpone. Because, it's unbelievable. They're probably going to postpone it to the 11th because they know that people out there are talking about it, and they're going, oh, October 4th, shut your phone off. And then on October 11th, nobody will remember to shut their phone off because they'll think it already happened on the 4th because they don't know, right? So that's probably why there's a backup thing in there, right? Because it does say this is only a test, so why would it matter if there was a hurricane at the same time? They just want to make sure your phone's on and not in a Faraday bag, Faraday cage, whatever, inside your microwave, somewhere to protect it from giving off any type of waves, right? They don't talk about that stuff. And again, that's not been proven other than using common sense about radiation that people don't seem to have. All one has to do. I have tons of videos on my website, Uprising Revival, about it in the past, about cell phones and radiation. Okay? Like, would you want to be near what we perceived as nukes and the radiation that comes off of that? No, right? You ever see Hills Have Eyes? I always use that as an easy way to explain it to common sense people. Or people who can't think, I should say. Not common sense people. People who have no common sense. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that movie. Everyone was all weird and mutated out there. Yeah, from the nuclear bombs, right? Oh, okay. Well, guess what? The 5G towers can give off the same radiation. Okay? So how do you think that's working on your brain? Now, it's not going to make you mutated like to look like, hey, you guys from Goonies. But it's going to mutate you on the inside. So they say, according to FEMA, the message to be broadcast will state, this is a nationwide test of the emergency alert system issued by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, covering the U.S. from 1420 to 1450 hours Eastern. This is only a test. No action is required by the public. So it's a half hour, it looks like, from 220 to 250. So it's 1450. So let's see, 250, 220, so 30. So a lot of like 322s mixed up in there. But anyway, it's only a test, ladies and gentlemen. There's only a reason for a backup date, right? Because, there's only a reason they're covering this stuff. What would they care? Why would they care then if people are out there talking about, hey, shut your phone off? Because, what's the worst thing that could happen, right? If it's a test, who cares if your phone's even on, right? They want people out there to literally, hear this stuff and be like, I'm not shutting off my phone because these people are nuts. Oh, everything's fine. I mean, they're clearly deflecting because they know more people are going to shut their phones off. They want to make sure they don't. Otherwise, why would you even bring attention to it? Right? And the dumbest thing and the most annoying thing to me is when people are like, oh, because this is what like the alt-right, they always talk about making money. They're like, oh, it's all about money. Everything goes back. It doesn't go back to money at all. They print money. It's about control. And then when it comes to things like this, they're like, oh, it's about clicks. Oh, yeah, because everybody's researching October 4th and conspiracy. If that was the case, then everybody would be shutting their phones off and everybody would be awake. Right? They're not getting clicks. Nothing's going viral about this stuff. They stop it before it happens. They want these videos, these articles to drown out the truth. So if anybody's searching for these things with those key words that I just read to you about graphene, etc., these are the stories that'll come up way before anything from me or anyone else comes up. That way it's the first thing, because everybody knows people click on the first thing they see. They're not going to go to page 5 or 50 of Google to find something I've covered or someone else has covered. So it'll be drowned out by multiple mainstream media outlets that are deemed credible for whatever reason in these people's minds, and then they'll just dismiss it because these people have told them to dismiss it. So they're like, okay, somebody at work's like, hey, did you hear about the graphene oxide and the test on the 4th? And the guy's like, no, I don't even know what that stuff is. Oh, you should research it. Okay, I'll research it. They go home, they look it up, and this is the first thing they see. So then they go, oh, okay, that's all crazy conspiracy. They've already explained to me why. I don't really understand what they're saying, but they've explained it to me. Now I've dismissed it. I'm not going to do any further research on it, and that's the end of the story. That's why it's out there, for people that don't understand why they do this. I thank everyone for being here. Reminder, check out the website, uprisingrevival.com if you haven't. And please, please, please sub to my backup channels if you haven't yet. Very likely this gets a strike, but this will be available on the website in the event that it does, as always. I thank you for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.